The first sensation is not one of sight, nor of sound, but of a deep, resonant vibration that hums through the stone floor, up the legs of the ancient four-poster bed, and into the very marrow of my bones. It is the Black Lake, stirring in its endless, slumbering dance against the dungeon walls. A constant companion, its presence is a pressure against the ears, a weight in the air that is as familiar to me as the beat of my own heart. For years I have slept here, suspended in the deep, quiet heart of Hogwarts, cradled by the cold, dark water. The world above, with its shrill birds and its glaring, intrusive sun, is a distant rumor, a frantic world I am insulated from. Here, there is only the deep, the dark, and the damp. The silence here is not an absence of sound. It is a presence in itself. It is a thick, heavy blanket woven from stone and water, punctuated only by the low thrum of the lake and the occasional distant groan of the castle settling on its ancient foundations. It is a silence that absorbs noise, that smothers the frantic energy from the upper floors before it can intrude upon this sanctum. My eyes open without command. They do not flutter, nor do they blink away the crust of sleep. They simply open to the familiar, profound gloom of my quarters. There is no need for light. I have memorized the geography of this room through touch and shadow alone, a map etched into my mind by years of silent repetition. 3 paces from my bed to the wash basin, its porcelain surface always shockingly cold. 10 paces from the basin to the tall, unadorned wardrobe of dark, polished wood. 7 paces from the wardrobe to the heavy oak door that leads into my private laboratory. The air is cool, carrying the faint, clean scent of stone and something else, something uniquely mine, a layered aroma of dried herbs, of old parchment, of the sharp, metallic temps, of certain volatile potion ingredients that cling to my robes and hair, and have long since seeped into the very fabric of this place, becoming pit as much a part of it as the mortar between the stones. I rise not with a start, but with a slow, deliberate unfolding of limbs, a conscious act of will against the gravity of sleep. The floor is cold beneath my bare feet, a familiar shock that chases away the last vestiges of whatever thin, vapid dreams may have flickered through my mind. They are never memorable, my dreams, wisps of forgotten anxieties and half-formed memories that dissolve like mist upon waking. My work is too precise, my mind too ordered to allow for the unstructured chaos of a rich dreamscape. It is a mercy. The mind must be a fortress, and dreams are traitors within the walls. My movements are a silent ritual, a liturgy of preparation. The splash of cold water on my face, sharp and bracing, a physical punctuation mark to begin the day. Then, the pull of my customary black robes over my head. The fabric is a heavy, fine wool, its weight settling onto my shoulders like a second skin, a familiar pressure that is both a burden and a comfort. Each of the many buttons, carved from jet, is fastened with practiced efficiency from the collar. down to the hems, a methodical rhythmic motion. Click, 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 each one a small act of sealing myself away. The cuffs are straightened, the drape of the fabric checked in the dim reflection of a darkened window pane. It is an armor of a sort, a uniform that declares my purpose and insulates me from the frivolous, grading nonsense of the world. There is a profound comfort in the routine, in the unthinking sequence of actions that begin my day. It is a foundation, border upon which the potential chaos of the hours to come will be built and hopefully contained. With a soft, well-oiled click, I opened the door to my laboratory. Here, the air is different, thicker, heavier. It is a complex tapestry of scents, 100 different stories told in whispers of vapor and dust, a library of aromas, the earthy sweetness of dried valerian root, a scent of calm and sleep hangs vivae in the air, mingling with the sharp, acidic bite of powdered bicorn horn, a smell of potency and danger. There is the faint ozone crackle of latent magic, a static charge that prickles the senses, and beneath it all, the subtle, cloying perfume of a single, perfectly preserved asphodel, encased in a crystal box on a high shelf. Its scent a constant, low murmur of regret. On a far workbench, a large copper cauldron bubbles softly, its contents a deep, shimmering indigo, like a captured twilight sky. A long-term project, a potion of such immense complexity that it requires weeks of slow, careful simmering, with ingredients added at precise lunar intervals. Its gentle, rhythmic blub 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 is the true heartbeat of this chamber, a sound more constant and more reassuring than my own. My eyes scan the shelves, not searching, but simply observing, taking inventory of my kingdom. Each jar, each vial, each box is in its designated place, aligned with obsessive precision. The glint of the filtered lake light on a row of perfectly blown glass phials, the dark, matte texture of the dried gillyweed in a wide-mouthed jar, its fronds like pressed seaweed, the iridescent, unnatural sheen of a clutch of beetle eyes, their tiny forms preserved forever in a stasis charm, watching everything and seeing nothing. This is my domain, a place of logic, of precision, of absolute cause and effect. Here, there are no messy emotions, no unpredictable allegiances, no fickle loyalties. There are only ingredients, processes, and outcomes. If you are precise, if you are patient, if you follow the instructions to the letter, you will achieve the desired result. There is a profound, unshakable peace in that certainty. It is the one truth upon which I can rely. This morning's task is a simple one, a meditative preparation for the day ahead. I require a perfectly smooth, almost ethereal paste of powdered moonstone for a batch of draught of peace I must brew. For the hospital wing, Poppy is, as usual, running low. Her belief in the restorative power of a good night's sleep is matched only by her students. Talent for finding new and inventive ways to induce panic and hysteria in one another over trivial matters like misplaced quills and failed examinations. I select a heavy black marble mortar and a pestle of matching stone. They are ancient, older than my time at this school, perhaps older than the school itself. The marble is worn smooth with centuries of use, cool and solid in my hands. From a locked cabinet, secured with a charm that would boil the blood of any but myself, I retrieve a small, velvet-lined box. Inside, resting on a cushion of black silk, are 3 moonstones, each the size of a robin's egg. They are not the brilliant, flashy sort one might see in a Gringotts vault. These are quieter, their surfaces milky and opaque, but they hold a soft, internal luminescence, a captured piece of the night sky. They seem to drink the gloom of the room and give back a gentle, pearlescent glow. I place one of the stones into the mortar. The clink of stone on stone is a clear, sharp sound in the quiet room, a single, deliberate note. I take the pestle in hand, its weight familiar, an extension of my own arms. The work begins. It is not a matter of brute force. You do not crush a moonstone. You would only get shards and failure. You persuade it. The motion is a slow, steady, circular grind, a constant, even pressure moving from the shoulder, not the wrist. Scrape, swirl, scrape, swirl. The sound is a soft, abrasive whisper, a sibilant chant, a counterpoint to the bubbling of the cauldron. My shoulder settles into the rhythm. My breathing deepens, slowing, matching the slow, circular motion of my hand. The world narrows. I focus on the stone, on the point of contact between pestle and mineral. I can feel the subtle shift as its surface begins to yield, the smooth, cool exterior giving way to a fine, granular resistance. Scrape, swirl. A faint, silvery dust begins to coat the dark interior of the mortar. It shimmers with a faint, captured light, like frost on a winter's night or the trail of a shooting star. The air fills with a new scent, a clean, mineral smell, like the air after a lightning strike, cold and pure. My mind, for a time, goes quiet. It is not empty, but focused, narrowed to this single point of existence. The feel of the pestle in my hand, the sound of the grinding stone, the sight of the shimmering dust. There is no past here, no future. There is only the steady, patient transformation of solid into powder. It is a form of magic as old as the earth itself. The art of breaking something down to its essential components, only to rebuild it into something new, something with purpose, a correction, a solution. Time loses its sharp edges, melting into a slow, steady flow. The only markers are the gradual disappearance of the stone and the growing accumulation of the silvery, glowing dust. The world outside these walls, the students who will soon be clattering down to the great hall with their pointless chatter. The colleagues I will be forced to endure at breakfast with their false pleasantries, the endless, tedious demands. My time and my patience, all of it, fades into irrelevance, a dull noise beyond a very thick door. Here, in the quiet hum of my laboratory, with the scent of stone dust in the air and the steady, hypnotic rhythm of my work, there is a semblance of peace, a fragile, temporary peace, to be sure, one that must be constructed each morning with deliberate effort. But for now, it is enough. The first light of dawn, a weak, greenish glow filtered through the enchanted glass of the high dungeon windows, begins to trace the outlines of the jars on the highest shelves, making the dust motes dance in its pale beams. The day is beginning, but it begins here, on my terms, in the quiet solitude of my own making. The last of the moonstone has yielded, transformed into a pool of shimmering silver dust at the bottom of the black marble mortar. The process is complete. I tap the pestle gently against the rim, a sharp ting, ting, ting that dislodges the last clinging particles. The dust settles. For a long moment, I simply observe it, a miniature galaxy swirling with captured light. It is perfect. To rush this stage would be to invite failure, to introduce a flaw at the very foundation of the potion. Patience is not merely a virtue in my art. It is a primary ingredient, as essential as the moonstone itself, with a thin, flat scraper made. From dragon bone, I carefully gather the powder, coaxing it onto a sheet of clean, stiff parchment. The sound is a soft, satisfying shee, like dry leaves skittering across flagstones. The powder moves as one, a fluid, heavy substance. I fold the parchment into a precise funnel and pour the contents into a small, stoppered crystal vial. The dust flows like liquid silver, a silent, shimmering waterfall that catches the green dawn light. I stopper the vial and place it into a specific slot in a wooden rack on my workbench. Order everything in its place, everything with a purpose. Now for the draught of peace itself. The cauldron has been simmering through the night, a simple base of syrup of hellebore and water, held at a steady, low heat by a continuous bluebell flame charm. The liquid is a pale, unassuming yellow. It is time to introduce the active ingredients, to begin the true alchemy. First, the powdered moonstone. I unstopper the vial, and with a steady hand, tap the silvery dust into the center of the cauldron. It does not simply mix. It hangs suspended for a moment on the surface, a shining island, before dissolving in a slow, spiraling descent, leaving shimmering trails in its wake, like comets falling through a pale sky. The entire potion shifts in color from a weak yellow to a soft, luminous turquoise. I take up my silver stirring rod. The instructions are precise, 7 times, clockwise. The motion must be smooth, a slow, deliberate swirl that creates a gentle vortex in the center of the cauldron. The liquid thickens slightly, its shimmering quality intensifying. The surface glows with a soft, peaceful light. 1, 2, 3. The rhythmic motion is calming. My arm a pendulum marking the slow passage of time. 4, 5, 6. The air above. The cauldron grows fragrant, a cool, clean scent like fresh snow. 7. I pause, holding the rod perfectly still in the exact center. Then, one final stir, counterclockwise. The vortex collapses. The surface of the potion becomes as smooth and reflective as a mirror, its color deepening to a tranquil cerulean blue. The steam that rises now is a pale silver, and it does not dissipate, but hangs in the air in gentle, curling ribbons. The draught is ready for its final, slow simmering. I reduce the flame charm with a muttered word, and the bubbling subsides to a barely perceptible tremor. My work here, for now, is done. The silence of the laboratory, once a comfort, now feels complete, finished. The world outside the heavy oak door begins to assert itself. I can hear the first faint, distant sounds of the waking castle. A metallic clang, perhaps one of the suits of armor shifting its grip on its poleaxe. The far-off, mournful cry of a portrait whose slumber has been disturbed. It is time to face the day I extinguish the main lamps in my laboratory, leaving only the low, blue flame beneath the cauldron. The room returns to its deep, familiar shadows, the rows of glass jars becoming dark, mysterious shapes. I step back into my sleeping quarters, the air feeling thin and plain after the rich atmosphere of the lab. My footsteps are silent on the cold stone as I move towards the door that leads out into the main dungeons. My hand rests on the cold iron handle. A deep breath, a bracing of the mind. Then I pull it open. The corridor outside is a cavern of green-tinged darkness. Enchanted torches, their flames a cool, mossy green, flicker in sconces along the wall, casting long, dancing shadows that writhe and stretch like living things. The air is colder here, heavy with the damp chill of the lake. The only sound is the soft, rhythmic drip, drip, drip of condensation seeping through the stone ceiling, falling into a small, unseen puddle somewhere in the darkness. It is a sound that has measured out my life at this school for years. I begin to walk, my heeled boots making a sharp, solitary click-clack on the flagstones. The sound echoes in the enclosed space, each footstep chasing the ghost of the one before, bit down the long, empty corridor. I pass the entrance to the Slytherin common room, a bare stretch of damp stone wall to the uninitiated. I can hear the faint, sleepy murmur of voices from within, the low crackle of the fire that is never allowed to die. The sound is muffled, distant, as if coming from another world. I do not slow my pace, as I move further from the lake's edge, and closer to the heart of the castle. The single echo of my footsteps is joined by others. The groan of a heavy door opening somewhere on an upper floor, a sound that travels down through the stone. The distant, high-pitched giggling of Peeves, no doubt beginning his daily campaign of minor terrorism. The sounds are still faint, filtered through tons of rock and masonry, but they signal the inevitable encroachment of the day. The peace of the deep dungeons is a fragile, finite thing. I reach the grand staircase that spirals up from the dungeons. Here, the air begins to change. The heavy, damp chill recedes, replaced by a drier, warmer air that smells faintly of beeswax and old stone. The green light of the dungeon torches gives way to the warmer, yellow light of the sconces in the main castle. My footsteps lose their sharp, lonely echo, absorbed by the vast, open space of the entrance hall. I ascend the stairs, my black robes sweeping behind me, a shadow climbing towards the light. The great hall is mostly empty. A few of the house elves are silently clearing away the last traces of yesterday, their movements swift and silent. The 4 long house tables are gleaming, waiting. Above the enchanted ceiling is a perfect replica of the pre-dawn sky outside, a deep, bruised purple streaked with the first faint ribbons of orange and pink. The candles float serenely in the air, their flames barely flickering. A few ghosts drift aimlessly through the hall, translucent and silvery. The fat friar waves a cheerful, plump hand at me. I ignore him. The bloody baron glides past, his chains making a faint, dry, rattling sound, like snakes slithering over parchment. He nods his head in a gesture of silent, grim respect, which I return with a slight inclination of my own. We understand one another. I walk the length of the hall, my gaze fixed forward, my footsteps now silent on the great flagstones. I ascend the 2 steps to the high table and take my customary seat to the right of the headmaster's empty throne. From here, I can observe the entire hall. The wood of the table is ancient, polished smooth by centuries of use, cool beneath my hands. I rest them on the surface, my fingers steepled, and I wait. This is the final moment of quiet. The deep, resonant peace of the dungeons has been replaced by the vast, echoing peace of the empty hall. It is a different kind of silence, one pregnant with anticipation. Soon, the doors will swing open. Soon, the hall will be filled with the cacophony of youth. The performance will begin. But for now, in the soft, growing light of the enchanted dawn, there is only the quiet, the waiting, and the deep, steady rhythm of my own breathing. Asterisk. The waiting is a peculiar state of being. It is not idle. It is an act of observation, of gathering oneself. My gaze drifts over the great hall, a vast and silent theater before the players arrive. I note the way the nascent sunlight, now a stronger, golden hue, streams through the tall arched windows on the eastern wall, striking the polished surface of the Hufflepuff table and making the golden goblets gleam. I see the house elves, now finished with their work, disappearing with soft pops, leaving behind only the scent of lemon polish and the profound silence of a space made ready. The enchanted ceiling shifts, the purple fading to a soft periwinkle blue, the stars of the pre-dawn sky winking out one by one. It is a slow, inevitable progression, as unstoppable as time itself. The great oak doors at the far end of the hall groan open. The sound is immense, a deep, resonant complaint of ancient wood and iron that echoes through the cavernous space. The first arrivals are, as always, the Raven, a small group of older students, their faces already etched with the seriousness of study, their bags heavy with books. They move with a quiet purpose, their footsteps soft, their voices low, murmuring about transfiguration theory or the finer points of ancient runes. They take their seats, and the rustle of parchment and the scratching of quills as they make last-minute notes is the first sound to break the stillness. It is a tolerable sound, a sound of industry. Then come the Hufflepuff. not in a quiet group, but in a slow, steady stream of twos and threes. They bring with them a warmth, a gentle chatter that is less intrusive than it might be. They speak of greenhouses and herbology, of their families, of the amusing shape of a cloud they saw from their dormitory window. Their laughter is soft, a gentle bubbling that barely disturbs the air. They are, for the most part, earnest and unassuming. Their presence is like the slow warming of a room, a gradual increase in temperature that is almost unnoticeable until it is complete. My attention, however, is drawn to the high table. Minerva McGonagall is the first of my colleagues to arrive. Her footsteps are brisk, her posture ramrod straight, her tartan-trimmed robes immaculate. She gives a curt nod in my direction, which I return with an equally economical gesture. We do not exchange pleasantries. There is no need. Our understanding is built on decades of shared experience, of battles fought side by side, of a mutual, if grudging, respect. She takes her seat, and immediately a copy of Transfiguration Today appears before her. The rustle of its pages is a sharp, crisp sound. Next is Phileas Flitwick, who has to climb onto a small stack of books placed on his chair to see over the table. He squeaks a cheerful "Good morning, Severus." In my direction, I offer a slow blink. In response, it is all the acknowledgement he requires, or at least all he will receive. He begins to hum a jaunty tune, a maddeningly cheerful melody that buzzes in the air like a trapped fly. I focus on the intricate patterns of the wood grain on the table before me, a small act of mental discipline to block out the sound. And then, deluge. The doors to the great hall are thrown open with a resounding crash, and the Gryffindors arrive. They do not enter. They erupt. A wave of noise and color, of loud voices and louder laughter, of jostling shoulders and untucked shirts. They are a storm front of chaos, led inevitably by Potter and his usual cohorts. The Weasley boy is already bright red and shouting about some Quidditch maneuver, gesturing wildly with a piece of toast that has just appeared on his plate. The Granger girl is, of course, attempting to rein them in, her voice a sharp, nagging counterpoint to their boisterousness. My jaw tightens, my fingers, still steepled, pressed together until the knuckles are white. This is the daily assault. The grating, undisciplined energy that sets my teeth on edge. I allow my gaze to sweep over them, my expression carefully blank, yet carrying the full weight of my disdain. Potter catches my eye for a fraction of a second. The usual flicker of defiance and fear crosses his face before he looks away. It is a small, hollow victory, but it is something. The food appears. Platters of sausages and bacon, mountains of scrambled eggs, towers of toast, bowls of porridge, jugs of pumpkin juice. The smells fill the hall, rich and savory. The noise level increases tenfold as the students begin to eat. The clatter of cutlery on plates, a deafening percussion. Their voices a roaring, chaotic symphony. I place a single piece of dry toast on my own plate and pour a cup of black, bitter tea. I have no appetite. My breakfast is the observation of others, a silent, gathering of information. I watch the students, the way a Slytherin first year nervously eyes the older students, hoping for a sign of approval. The way a Ravenclaw girl absent-mindedly charms her spoon to stir her tea for her while she reads. The way Longbottom inevitably spills his pumpkin juice, a splash of bright orange against the grey stone floor. It is all data, a tapestry of weaknesses, of alliances, of tells. A headmaster Dumbledore sits to my left now, his eyes twinkling behind his half-moon spectacles as he surveys the scene with an expression of benevolent indulgence that I find utterly baffling. He greets me warmly, and I offer a grunt in reply, my eyes still fixed on the sea of students below. The morning post arrives in a flurry of owls. They swoop and soar under the enchanted ceiling, a blizzard of brown and white and grey feathers, dropping letters and packages onto the tables. The noise of their hooting and screeching adds another layer to the cacophony. A large barn owl drops a copy of the Daily Prophet in front of I catch the headline before he picks it up. Something tedious about the ministry. I have no interest. My world is here within these walls. The politics of the outside world are a distant, irrelevant noise. My gaze drifts back to my own house. Table. The Slytherins are more restrained than the Gryffindors, their ambition manifesting as a quiet, watchful intensity rather than a loud display. Malfoy is holding court amongst his cronies, his voice a low, arrogant drawl. He is posturing, as always, attempting to project an aura of power he does not truly possess. He is a pale imitation of his father, a disappointment. The meal winds down. The roar of conversation subsides to a dull hum as students begin to gather their belongings, preparing for the first classes of the day. The clatter of plates is replaced by the scraping of benches and the thud of heavy books. I finish my tea, the bitter liquid a welcome sensation. I rise from my seat, my black robes settling round me. The high-table conversation ceases for a moment as I depart. I do not look at my colleagues. I simply turn and sweep down from the dais, my long strides carrying me towards the great doors. The students part before me, a silent wave receding from a dark shore. They avert their eyes, their chatter falling to a whisper as I pass. This is the armor I have built. Fear, respect, intimidation. It is a tool, like any other. It keeps them at a distance. It allows me to move through this world of chaos unmolested. As I reach the doors, I can feel the hundreds of pairs of eyes on my back. I do not turn. I push the doors open and step out into the entrance hall, leaving the noise and the light and the smell of food behind me. Ahead lies the cool, quiet descent. Back to the dungeons, back to my classroom, back to my world. The performance is over. Now the work begins. The heavy oaked doors of the great hall swing shut behind me, and the cacophony is cut off as if by a knife. The sudden, profound silence is a physical relief, like a weight being lifted from my shoulders. The entrance hall is not empty. Students mill about, gathering their bags, forming chattering clusters before heading off to their first lessons. But here, my presence imposes its own form of quiet. The clusters part, the chatter dies in their throats, and a path clears for me without my having to alter my course. Their fear is a cloak I wear, and it is blessedly effective. My path is always the same. I do not look at the grand staircase that leads to the upper floors, to the bright, airy classrooms of charms and transfiguration. My destination lies below. I move towards the darker, less traveled steps that spiral down into the dungeons. With each step downward, the air grows cooler, the light dimmer. The sounds of the upper castle fade, replaced by the familiar, deep silence of the lower levels. The scent of beeswax and daylight is replaced by the clean, cold smell of damp stone and lake water. It feels like a homecoming. The corridors of the dungeons are empty now. The Slytherins are either still in the Great Hall or have already made their way to their first classes. My footsteps echo once more, a solitary rhythm in the green-tinged gloom. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound is sharp, defined, a stark contrast to the muffled chaos of breakfast. This is a world of clear lines and shadows, of quiet and cold. It is a world I understand. I arrive at the door to my classroom. It is identical to the other dungeon doors, heavy, dark wood, with a small, barred window. But this one feels different. It is a threshold. I push it open and step inside. The classroom is a large, cold, rectangular chamber. The students' desks are arranged in neat, severe rows, their surfaces bare and scrubbed clean. At the front, the room, is my own large, imposing desk, behind which are shelves upon shelves of glass jars. But unlike the jars in my private laboratory, these contain things meant to be seen, things meant to instruct and to intimidate. Floating in greenish liquid are the bulbous, sightless eyes of a giant squid, a shrunken head from New Guinea, its mouth stitched shut, stares blankly from a high shelf, a delicate silvery skeleton of some unknown winged creature is suspended by wires from the ceiling, its shadow dancing on the far wall in the torchlight. The air in here is still and heavy. It smells of pickled specimens, of vinegar, and of the faint, ever-present undercurrent of 100 failed potions, the lingering scent of scorched cauldron and singed hair. But beneath it all, there is the same clean, cold scent of the dungeons. The only light comes from the green flames of the torches that line the walls, casting everything in an eerie, aquatic glow. There are no windows to the outside world. There is no sun here. There is only the controlled, unchanging environment I have created. I walk the length of the classroom, my robes whispering over the stone floor. I run a single gloved finger along the surface of a student's desk. It comes away clean. House elves are efficient. I will grant them that. I move behind my own desk and stand there for a moment, surveying the empty room. This is my stage. Soon, it will be filled with dunderheads and fools, with the arrogant and the incompetent. Soon, I will have to endure their vacant stares, their clumsy hands, their utter inability to grasp the subtle science and exact art that is potion-making. But for now, there is silence, a deep, expectant stillness. I can hear the low hiss of the torches. I can hear the faint, distant drip, drip, drip of water somewhere down the corridor. I can hear the slow, steady beat of my own heart. This is the quiet before the storm. It is a moment to be SAVOURED. On my desk, a stack of essays awaits marking. First-year work on the properties of powdered unicorn horn. I pick up the top one. The handwriting is a childish scrawl, the ink already smudged. I can already anticipate the litany of errors, the foolish assumptions, the blatant disregard for the textbook. A sigh, almost inaudible, escapes my lips. I do not begin marking. Instead, I turn to the blackboard behind my desk. I pick up a piece of chalk. The feeling of the dry, dusty stick in my fingers is familiar. With sharp, precise strokes, I write the instructions for today's lesson, the forgetfulness potion. The chalk makes a crisp, scraping sound against the slate, the only sound in the room. Each letter is perfectly formed, angular and severe. Ingredients: 2 drops of lethe river water to valerian sprigs, 4 mistletoe berries, 2 measures of standard. Ingredient: I list the steps with unwavering precision. Each instruction is clear, concise, and unambiguous. There is no room for interpretation, no allowance for creativity. Potions are a science of absolutes. To deviate is to fail. To fail is to risk disaster. 1. Add 2 drops of lethe river water to your cauldron. 2. Gently heat the mixture for 20 seconds. 3. Add 2 valerian sprigs. 4. Stir 3 times, clockwise. 5. Wave your wand. 6. Leave to brew for 45 minutes. I place the chalk back in its tray, leaving a fine white dust on my fingertips. I look at the by instructions on the board. They are a bastion of order against the impending chaos. They are the rules. They are the law. I move to the locked storeroom at the back of the classroom. The click of the key in the lock is loud in the silence. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of ingredients. I gather what is needed for the demonstration. A small, lead-lined vial of the shimmering, black, lethe river water. A bundle of fresh, fragrant valerian sprigs. A small box of plump, white mistletoe berries. I place them on my demonstration table at the front of the room, arranging them in a neat, precise line. Everything is ready. I have created an island of perfect order. Every variable is controlled. Every element is in its place. I return to my desk and sit, my back straight, my hands folded on the cool wooden surface. I close my eyes, just for a moment, and breathe in the cold, still air of my classroom. I am the master of this domain. I am the absolute authority. Here my word is law. Then I hear it. The first distant sound of approaching footsteps. The faint, high-pitched chatter of students making their way down the dungeon corridor. They are coming. The silence is about to be broken. The stillness is about to be shattered. I open my eyes. The performance is about to begin anew. Asterisk. The heavy oaked doors of the great hall swing shut behind me, and the cacophony is cut off as if by a knife. The sudden, profound silence is a physical relief, like a weight being lifted from my shoulders. The entrance hall is not empty. Students mill about, gathering their bags, forming chattering clusters before heading off to their first lessons. But here, my presence imposes its own form of quiet. The clusters part, the chatter dies in their throats, and a path clears for me without my having to alter my course. Their fear is a cloak I wear, and it is blessedly effective. My path is always the same. I do not look at the grand staircase that leads to the upper floors, to the bright, airy classrooms of charms and transfiguration. My destination lies below. I move towards the darker, less traveled steps that spiral down into the dungeons. With each step downward, the air grows cooler, the light dimmer. The sounds of the upper castle fade, replaced by the familiar, deep silence of the lower levels. The scent of beeswax and daylight is replaced by the clean, cold smell of damp stone and lake water. It feels like a homecoming. The corridors of the dungeons are empty now. The Slytherins are either still in the Great Hall or have already made their way to their first classes. My footsteps echo once more, a solitary rhythm in the green-tinged gloom. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound is sharp, defined, a stark contrast to the muffled chaos of breakfast. This is a world of clear lines and shadows, of quiet and cold. It is a world I understand. I arrive at the door to my classroom. It is identical to the other dungeon doors, heavy, dark wood, with a small, barred window. But this one feels different. It is a threshold. I push it open and step inside. The classroom is a large, cold, rectangular chamber. The students' desks are arranged in neat, severe rows, their surfaces bare and scrubbed clean. At the front, the room, is my own large, imposing desk, behind which are shelves upon shelves of glass jars. But unlike the jars in my private laboratory, these contain things meant to be seen, things meant to instruct and to intimidate. Floating in greenish liquid are the bulbous, sightless eyes of a giant squid. A shrunken head from New Guinea, its mouth stitched shut, stares blankly from a high shelf. A delicate, silvery skeleton of some unknown winged creature is suspended by wires from the ceiling, its shadow dancing on the far wall in the TORCHLIGHT. The air in here is still and heavy. It smells of pickled specimens, of vinegar, and of the faint, ever-present undercurrent of 100 failed potions, the lingering scent of scorched cauldron and singed hair. But beneath it all, there is the same clean, cold scent of the dungeons. The only light comes from the green flames of the torches that line the walls, casting everything in an eerie, aquatic glow. There are no windows to the outside world. There is no sun here. There is only the controlled, unchanging environment I have created. I walk the length of the classroom, my robes whispering over the stone floor. I run a single gloved finger along the surface of a student's desk. It comes away clean. House elves are efficient. I will grant them that. I move behind my own desk and stand there for a moment, surveying the empty room. This is my stage. Soon, it will be filled with dunderheads and fools, with the arrogant and the incompetent. Soon, I will have to endure their vacant stares, their clumsy hands, their utter inability to grasp the subtle science and exact art that is potion-making. But for now, there is silence, a deep, expectant stillness. I can hear the low hiss of the torches. I can hear the faint, distant drip, drip, drip of water somewhere down the corridor. I can hear the slow, steady beat of my own heart. This is the quiet before the storm. It is a moment to be SAVOURED. On my desk, a stack of essays awaits marking. First-year work on the properties of powdered unicorn horn. I pick up the top one. The handwriting is a childish scrawl, the ink already smudged. I can already anticipate the litany of errors, the foolish assumptions, the blatant disregard for the textbook. A sigh, almost inaudible, escapes my lips. I do not begin marking. Instead, I turn to the blackboard behind my desk. I pick up a piece of chalk. The feeling of the dry, dusty stick in my fingers is familiar. With sharp, precise strokes, I write the instructions for today's lesson, the forgetfulness potion. The chalk makes a crisp, scraping sound against the slate, the only sound in the room. Each letter is perfectly formed, angular and severe. Ingredients: 2 drops of Lethe river water to valerian sprigs, 4 mistletoe berries, 2 measures of standard. Ingredient: I list the steps with unwavering precision. Each instruction is clear, concise, and unambiguous. There is no room for interpretation, no allowance for creativity. Potions are a science of absolutes. To deviate is to fail. To fail is to risk disaster. 1. Add 2 drops of Lethe river water to your cauldron. 2. Gently heat the mixture for 20 seconds. 3. Add 2 valerian sprigs. 4. Stir 3 times, clockwise. 5. Wave your wand. 6. Leave to brew for 45 minutes. I place the chalk back in its tray, leaving a fine white dust on my fingertips. I look at the by instructions on the board. They are a bastion of order against the impending chaos. They are the rules. They are the law. I move to the locked storeroom at the back of the classroom. The click of the key in the lock is loud in the silence. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of ingredients. I gather what is needed for the demonstration. A small, lead-lined vial of the shimmering, black Lethe river water. A bundle of fresh, fragrant valerian sprigs. A small box of plump, white mistletoe berries. I place them on my demonstration table at the front of the room, arranging them in a neat, precise line. Everything is ready. I have created an island of perfect order. Every variable is controlled. Every element is in its place. I return to my desk and sit, my back straight, my hands folded on the cool wooden surface. I close my eyes just for a moment, and breathe in the cold, still air of my classroom. I am the master of this domain. I am the absolute authority. Here my word is law. Then I hear it, the first distant sound of approaching footsteps, the faint, high-pitched chatter of students making their way down the dungeon corridor. They are coming. The silence is about to be broken. The stillness is about to be shattered. I open my eyes. The performance is about to begin anew. Asterisk. The library of my mind is silent. The locks are secure. The archives are still. The vast, cool darkness within is a perfect mirror of the room around me. I open my eyes. The familiar gloom of my quarters greets me not as a lack of light, but as a presence, a thick, comforting medium in which to exist. The day is done. Its endless succession of irritations and obligations has been processed, filed away, and locked down. There is nothing left now but this, the quiet, the cold, and the dark. I rise from the armchair, my movements slow, my limbs feeling heavy with a clean, honest fatigue, not the frayed, buzzing exhaustion of a mind overwrought, but the simple, physical weariness of a body that has moved through a long day. I cross the 3 paces to my bed, my bare feet making no sound on the stone floor. The bed is a simple, dark wood frame, imposing and unadorned. It is not a place of soft indulgence. It is a place for oblivion. I do not bother with pajamas, that frivolous costume for sleep. I simply remove my boots, placing them side by side at the foot of the bed. The act of pulling back the covers is a release of cold. The sheets are old, heavy linen, cool to the touch, and they smell faintly of lavender, a single concession to comfort insisted upon by the house elves. A battle I abandoned long ago. I slide between the sheets. The initial shock of the cold is sharp, but it is a clean cold, a purifying cold. It leaches the last of the day's warmth from my skin, leaving me feeling anchored to the stone and the water that surround me. I pull the heavy woolen blanket up to my chin. Its weight is a comfort, a pressure that stills the body and quiets the pulse. I lie on my back, my hands resting at my sides, and stare up into the perfect, impenetrable darkness above me. There is nothing to see. There is only sensation. The weight of the blanket, the cold of the sheets, and the lake, the great slumbering beast that cradles my chambers now makes its presence fully known. It is a sound that is felt more than heard, a low, continuous, resonant hum that vibrates through the thick stone walls, through the floor, through the very legs of the bed. It is the deep, slow breathing of the water, a sound that has no beginning and no end. Thrum, thrum. It is a lullaby sung in the lowest possible register, a song of immense pressure and timeless, slow-moving power. The vibration enters my bones, a gentle, pervasive tremor that seems to loosen the very structure of my thoughts. The sharp edges of consciousness begin to blur and soften. The librarian has locked the doors and can finally rest. The fortress of the mind, its ramparts secured, is ready to be surrendered to the tide. The air itself feels heavy, a pressure against my eardrums, the weight of countless tons of dark water. It is a constant, gentle embrace, a reminder that I am at the very bottom of the world. My breathing slows, deepening, unconsciously falling into rhythm with the slow, ancient pulse of the lake. Inhale the cool, stone-scented air. Exhale the release of the day. Thrum, the sound is a current, pulling me down, down into the quiet, down into the still, down towards the cold, dark water of sleep. The darkness behind my eyes is no longer a simple absence of light. It is a space, a vast, empty, silent space. I am drifting within it, sinking slowly, deeper and deeper. The last vestiges of thought, like tiny, silvery fish, should be darting away into the gloom. But one remains. It is not a grand, terrible memory from the sealed vaults. It is nothing so dramatic. It is a loose page, a misfiled note from the day's trivialities, a flicker of green. Potter's eyes, yes, but not as they were in the great hall, full of defiance. This was from the last class of the day. The boy had, for a fleeting moment, succeeded in a minor, non-verbal charm, and for an instant his face was not a mask of resentment or fear, but was lit with genuine, unthinking surprise. And in that unguarded moment, his eyes were not his own, they were hers. The thought is an irritant, a grain of sand in the smooth mechanism of my carefully ordered mind. I try to dismiss it, to file it away onto its proper shelf. Potter, James, arrogance of progeny, likewise, but it refuses to be filed. The memory is not of the boy's arrogance, but of that brief, startling flash of someone else, of a different smile, of a different life. The perfect, vast silence of my mind is disturbed. A single echo now exists in the library, a whisper that has no place. The image of those eyes, bright with surprise, overlays the darkness. It is a crack in the obsidian wall of my control. The downward drift towards oblivion halts. I am suspended now, caught between the waking world and the peace of sleep, held in place by the ghost of a memory. The deep, resonant thrum of the lake continues its ancient song, but it is no longer a lullaby. It is a low, mournful note, a backdrop to this single, unwelcome, and persistent thought that now occupies the quiet dark. The thought will not be banished. It remains a single, luminous point of light in the vast darkness of my mind. The image of those green eyes. Her eyes, it is a flaw in the obsidian, a crack in the fortress. My control, usually so absolute, is failing. The careful architecture of my inner world, the library of my mind, begins to feel permeable. I fight it. I apply the discipline of years, the core tenets of occlumency. I attempt to wall off the memory, to encase it in lead, to sink it into the deepest, darkest trench of my consciousness. But it is like trying to capture smoke in a net. The memory is not a solid thing. It is an essence, a feeling. It is the ghost of a summer afternoon, the scent of crushed grass, the sound of a laugh that I had thought long buried. The deep, resonant thrum of the lake seems to change pitch character once more. It is no longer a mournful note, but a vast, indifferent one. It is the sound of time itself, a current that wears away even the hardest stone, the strongest walls. The fortress of my mind, which I have so painstakingly built and maintained, is, after all, only made of thought. And thought is no match for time. With a sense of profound internal surrender, I cease the struggle. I allow the memory to be. I do not engage with it, do not analyze it, do not indulge it. I simply let it exist, a single point of light in the darkness, and a strange thing happens. The memory, no longer being fought, begins to lose its sharp, painful focus. It softens. The image of the eyes blurs. The ghost of the laugh fades. It becomes less a memory and more a color, a wash of green, a feeling of warmth. It begins to spread, not like a crack, but like ink dissolving in water. The green tint seeps into the edges of the blackness, softening it, turning it into a deep, mossy twilight. The single point of light becomes a diffuse, gentle glow. The library, the fortress, the carefully constructed architecture of my mind does not shatter. It simply dissolves. The rigid shelves of memory, the locked vaults, the long, dark corridors, they lose their form, their substance. They melt, bow away into the gentle, green-tinted gloom. The librarian is gone. The fortress has fallen, and in its place there is only a vast, quiet, empty space. A space that is not black, but a deep, soft, endless green dot. My sense of self, that hard, angular thing I have protected for so long, begins to dissolve with it. The name, the titles, the resentments, the duties, they are books whose ink has run. Their pages turning to pulp, sinking into the quiet depths. Who am I? The question arises, but it has no weight. It is a bubble rising through deep water, popping into nothingness when it reaches the surface. It does not matter. The thrum of the lake is everything now. It is the only reality. It is the gentle, rhythmic pulse of the universe, and I am a part of it. I am no longer a man lying in a bed in a cold, dark room. I am a particle of dust suspended in an endless, quiet sea. I am a single note in a song that has been sung since the beginning of time. There is no past here. There is no future. There is no Potter. There is no Dark Lord. There is no Dumbledore. There is no Lily. There are no mistakes. There is no regret. There is only the deep, the dark, and the quiet, green-tinted peace. My breathing is slow and even, a tide rising and falling in perfect harmony with the lake. My body is a weightless thing, anchored to nothing. I am drifting now, not sinking, drifting on a gentle, silent current. The last vestiges of consciousness, of self, are like grains of salt dissolving in water, leaving behind only the pure, clear essence of being. The day is gone. The man is gone. There is only the drift, downward, outward, into the vast, silent, and finally peaceful deep.